On today's episode of Locked On Angels, Disneyland doesn't have the only roller coaster in Anaheim. The other belongs to the Angels. Our Halos took us on a bit of a trip last night in their win over the Rays. I'm so glad that they won, but I'm feeling a bit queasy. I get really bad motion sickness. So we're going to recap the game and all the big moments together here on Locked On Angels. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you'd like to get back to the Super Halo Bros for all the Super Halo content, here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe and become a Locked On Everydayer. And whether you're watching or listening, come over to YouTube, leave a comment. It's one of the best ways to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation. And today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Monopoly Go. The mobile hit is now on your phone. Join your friends and your family and download Monopoly Go, now free in the App Store and the Google Play Store. What's up, everybody? My name's Mike Frisch, one half of the Super Halo Bros and co-host of Locked On Angels. And normally I'll say, and that's my brother John, but brother John has been hit with the flu, not feeling too good. So he asked me to pinch hit for him today and do it on my own. So happy to do that. Happy to be with you and looking forward to having John back on the show tomorrow. We've been the host of Locked On Angels, now going into our third season, and we're here 5 days a week, got all of the information for you. We recap each of the games and talk about the players. It's so fun to have you here, especially if you're new to being a Locked On Everydayer. Thanks for being a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Today's show is going to be great. We're going to talk about Ron Washington giving his players little love notes. I'd love to get a love note from Ron Washington. And it's a great leadership tactic, and we're going to tell you why. Taylor Ward playing really well. Taylor Ward helping the Angels win last night. He has a reason why he's playing really well, and we're going to share his reason with you. But first, let's recap that roller coaster of a game last night. Angels win 5-4, so you can take a deep breath if you haven't heard yet. They win 5-4. They're 9-9, just a half game out of first place in the AL West. The Rangers are 10-9, so it's a really close race right now. Mariners are right behind them at 8-10. Astros are in last place, which is so awesome. I'm sorry, Astro fans, but we're excited about that in Anaheim and in California. So let's talk about this game from last night. They got off to a great start. Mike Trout hits a home run to right center. And I wanted to mention right center because him going the opposite way and using the entire field is something you want to see from Mike Trout. And when he's going that way, you know that he's seeing the ball well and his mechanics are all in sync. He was a sinker, middle down, and again, Trout took it the other way. It was the first home run given up by the Rays pitcher, the starting pitcher, and the Angels jumped out to a big 1-0 lead. And you know, in games like this against the Rays, you need more than just one run because they keep coming back, and we'll find that out as we recap this game. Bottom second, after an infield hit, Rendon makes a great stop at third base. He was diving, he got the ball, he scoops it up, and he throws to second. But then Rengifo's playing second base in this game because Drury is still out. And the throw goes to second, and Rengifo has it go off of his glove. Like, he doesn't get to it. It goes into right field, and the runners move up. And here's my problem with this. Two things. One, on a play like that, you almost have to be a first base catcher at second base so that when the ball is coming at you after a great stop, you're stopping it so that it's not going into right field. And you know that Rendon's not going to get a good throw off, but he's got this good habit of throwing and trying to bounce it to make it easier for you. But Rengifo was really trying to stretch. The ball kind of went over his glove, and so it goes into right field. So I think you got to get in front of that. But the second thing is that of course it's Rengifo, right? Of course it's Louis. And Louis seems to be in moments the last few games where the plays that he's been a part of, they haven't been just your typical plays. Like, you got to be pretty athletic to get there. But unfortunately, he's not really gotten there, but then the ball's kind of booted off his glove. And then it just kind of feeds the negative story that's around Louis Rengifo when he's out there. So this was a frustrating moment because it led to a sacrifice fly that tied the game. And Reed Detmers was on the mound, and he was cruising, and he did a really great job. We'll get to his stats in just a few minutes. But truthfully, like, I think he should have gotten in front of that ball. The good news is that Detmers did work out of trouble in that inning and got the final out. Top five, Shawnuel singles, and he takes second after a Neto pop out. It was kind of a pretty great awareness play on Shawnuel's part. So Neto pops out, and then the pitcher gets the ball back, and Neto's paying attention. He looks around, and he notices that the pitcher's just kind of putting his head down. First baseman's not paying attention. Second baseman is off the bag. Nobody calls timeout. So Shawnuel moves to second base, and he takes second base, and everybody's kind of freaking out. Like, what happened here? It was just great baseball awareness by Shawnuel. By the way, he had 3 hits last night, so that was great to see. And then it paid off because Rendon comes up. Say nice things about Rendon. Rendon comes up, he singles, and Shawnuel scores. It gave the Angels a 2-1 lead. But again, a 1-run lead against the Rays is not safe. Top 6, Ohapi singles for the Angels. And with 2 outs, Rengifo hits a double, and Ohapi ends up scoring. It was a splitter. It stayed up, and he hit it into left center. And Ohapi was going on the pitch, which made it a whole lot easier to get home. Made it 3-1 Angels. And I kind of was feeling pretty comfortable at this point. And I know that some of our everydayers were feeling comfortable as they tweeted at us yesterday at Locked On Angels, at Super Halo Bros. Bottom 6, the Rays did get a run back on Randy Arozarena's single to right field. It made it 3-2, runners at first and second, and then there was nobody out. So Barry Enright comes out, talks to Reed Detmers, and Detmers responds with a pop out in the infield, and that was the first out. It was a big, big out. But then Ron Washington came out, and it was the second mound visit, and he took Reed Detmers out, even though Reed didn't want to come out. They had a pretty, I wouldn't say heated conversation, but you could tell that Reed was not thrilled that Wash came out. He wanted to stay in a bit longer, and he wanted to finish that inning. But the decision to take him out and bring in Cimber was a good decision. And the idea behind it was perhaps we can get a double play, the way that Cimber pitches and the way that his pitches get thrown. Maybe he can induce a double play. So he comes in, he strikes out Rosario for the second out. Then Arozarena steals second base, but it didn't matter. Cimber holds the lead and gets the final out. Here's Detmer's final line. Didn't get the win, unfortunately, but left with the lead. 5 1/3, 7 hits, 2 runs, 1 earned, 1 walk, 4 Ks through 90 pitches. I think it's why he wanted to stay in there a bit longer. Littell, who pitched for the Rays, got to stay in there, and he got over 100 pitches. And I think Detmers wanted to match that because he was pitching really well up in this point. He has a 1.19 ERA so far this season. And by the way, he picked off the 5th Angels runner this season. They have 5 pickoffs so far this season. That leads the majors, and it was a great move to first base. So right now, the Angels are leading 3-2. We get to the bottom of the 7th. It got dicey again, and with 1 out, Cimber gives up an infield single, and it seemed like that's what the Rays have been doing against the Angels. It's just little dinky-doos, to steal a word from John. They've just been blooping things in and hitting really soft contact, and it's paid off for them. Angels haven't made an error. It's just been hit in the right spot. So with 1 out, an infield single given up by Cimber, and then he hits Pinto in the leg, and that looked like it hurt. And then so there's runners at first and runners at second with Diaz up, but Diaz lines out to short, and Zach freaking Neto makes an incredible catch and then crawls like over to second base and dives and tags the bag and gets that double play. It was such a great defensive play. John and I talked about Neto yesterday. John really believes that Neto is going to be somebody that gets Mike Trout to the playoffs. And Neto is going to be somebody that is like Jeter-esque on the defensive side because he's like a captain for this team. And he really fired up the troops in that moment. Did hit his wrist, but stayed in the game. Bottom 8. So the Angels are up 3-2. They've had 2 really close innings. And remember, we're not comfortable with 1-run leads against the Rays. Bottom 8, Hunter Strickland comes in. And he came in because the Angels bullpen was wiped from the game before. It went 13 innings. Everybody pitched, including Esteves and Matt Moore and all of that crew. So Hunter Strickland's coming in. He's probably going to be the guy for at least 2 innings, I would assume. And so he comes in the bottom of the 8th inning, and he gives up a 2-run home run to Ahmad Rosario. Now, full disclosure, I was outside. I was barbecuing at this time. And when I came back in and saw the score, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. And then what made it more unreal was that it came with 2 outs. And that's been the Angels' Achilles heel over the last couple of years. And it's kind of shown up every once in a while this season as well. But good news is that the game wasn't over. I know we felt probably like it was over, but Shonowell leads off the top of the ninth with his third hit in the game. Then Adell pitch runs for him. Neto walks. Adell moves to third on a ball in the dirt. Neto gets to second base. And then Anthony Rendon, say nice things about Anthony Rendon one more time. He singles and 1 run scored. Neto was thrown out at the plate. Now, I'm an Angel homer. I get it. I love the Angels. He's safe. He was safe. Like, he got his pinky toe on the corner of that base, and we were eating dinner while this was happening. And so the family was like, nah, he didn't touch the bag. I'm like, no, I think he did, but it's going to New York, and Manfred's going to say, Angels, yeah, let's just call him out, right? John would affirm that. I'm sure that John would affirm that. So the funny thing is that I knew that it was going to happen. However, the game was tied, which was great. And then Trout comes up. They intentionally walk Mike Trout to get to Taylor Ward. And I loved this. Ward singles to right field, and Anthony Rendon scores. And that gave the Angels the lead. And I loved Mike Trout's reaction. Trout was at second base, and Trout was just clapping his hands and just celebrating and was like, you're going to walk me. You've got Taylor Ward behind me. So then Strickland comes back out for the ninth inning. We're all collectively holding our breath, popping a Xanax, right? We're all really nervous about this, but he gets the final 3 outs, which is really good news. And again, the Angels win 5-4, and they're 9-9 in the AOS. Now, here's what makes this bullpen struggle from last night and even the night before really difficult to accept. The Angels said after the game last night that Robert Stevenson is going to miss the rest of the season. He's going to miss the rest of the season, which is so heartbreaking, so frustrating, especially with the way that this bullpen has been performing. And they haven't been terrible, but they haven't been great, right? They've been mediocre, which is Angel baseball, right? To not have Robert Stevenson now is super frustrating and super heartbreaking. And John and I will talk more about that when he comes back on the show. But that was just devastating news after a big win by our Halos. So thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. The Angels are playing the Rays this morning at 10:10 Pacific time. Griffin Canning's on the mound. We're hoping he can rebound because he's really been struggling. His miles per hour have been down at least by 2 miles per hour on every pitch. So we're hopeful that he can plow through at least 5 innings. It seemed like the bullpen's going to be okay for him if he can just make it through 5. But I hope we can see the Griffin Canning that we saw during spring training. You can catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Angels. And coming up on Locked On Angels, hey, why is Taylor Ward playing so well? Well, he knows why, and he shared why with us, and we're going to share why with you. That's coming up on Locked On Angels. Locked On Angels is brought to you by our friends at Policygenius. Policygenius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace. It saves you time and money so that you can provide for your family with a financial safety net starting today. With Policygenius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million in coverage. The truth is, your work life insurance may not be enough to offer protection for you and for your family's needs. And this is why you need the experts at Policygenius. Easily compare quotes from America's top insurers in just a few clicks to find your lowest price. And they've got a team of award-winning agents that will walk you through the process step by step. Here's the best part, and I can vouch for this. They're committed to giving you unbiased advice with the goal of helping you. No incentive to recommend one insurer over the other, so you can trust their guidance. We reached out. I have a life insurance policy on me, and we reached out just to see if there was a better deal for us. And they told us that what we had was the best deal for me. So I trust them, and you can trust them as well. With thousands of 5-star reviews on Google and Trustpilot from customers who found their best fit for their needs, you should check out Policygenius. Head to their website, policygenius.com/LockedOnMLB, or click the link in the description. You'll get a free life insurance quote and see how much you can save. That's policygenius.com/LockedOnMLB. And Locked On Angels is also brought to you by our friends at Monopoly Go. Your favorite board game is now on your phone. You can compete against your friends and your family, and you can work for the most riches and the biggest empire. It's the Monopoly you love, but it's on your phone anytime. You can play with tons of twists, including leaderboards to compare your progress with your buddies. You can cause your families to go bankrupt by smashing their landmarks with the wrecking ball, just like Miley Cyrus. Charge charge with other players' rent with your iconic properties, plus countless of dynamic Monopoly boards. And you can even work with your friends to crack open the community chest. And tournaments are available to get extra rewards and climb the leaderboard. So get back out there, put your game face on, and download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store and Google Play Store. It's the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day, and this is Locked On Angels, your first listen of the day. And make the switch right now to Locked On Sports Today. Instead of watching all of those other sports, you can watch Locked On Sports Today, one of the best shows, and it's free 24/7, and it's streaming on our Locked On Sports Today channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today brings you a can't-miss analysis and opinions and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. And speaking of your team, the Angels play the Rays at 10:10. Griffin Canning's on the mound, and you can catch every pitch of the Angels' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Angels. Last night, we saw Taylor Ward get a great hit, a big hit, to give the Angels the lead. They intentionally walked Mike Trout. Taylor Ward came up and dumped a single into right field. And I love this version of Taylor Ward, and he loves it too. The question actually is, why is he playing so well? Because there's a great connection to the 2022 early Taylor Ward that we're seeing right now in 2024. So what is it that has brought him back to that version of Taylor Ward? Well, Taylor was asked about that, and he said it's all his mindset. It's actually his focus and what he wanted to do when he arrived in the spring and when the season started. Taylor said, "I've thought more about getting off to a good start because of what happened the last 2 or 3 months of last year." And we know that he struggled out of the gate last year. And he said the struggle out of the gate last year was because of his mechanics. So he worked really hard on his mechanics this offseason and came to spring and started the regular season with a focus of, I'm going to get off to a great start and I'm going to get back to what it is that I do really well. His quote was this, that I was way out of whack mechanically, but I think now things are flowing a lot better. I'm just trying to do my thing all year long. He said a couple of things that he's trying to do is remain relaxed at the plate. You'll notice that he's setting the bat down just on his shoulder. He's not moving too much. His head is still, his hands are still. He's not chasing the fastball at the top of the zone and higher. That was the pitch that really got to him last year where he really struggled. Now he's hit a couple of them, but it's been successful, but he's not chasing after everything that's up and that he's going after. He's going after his pitch. And that's really something that he said Johnny Washington has really kind of hammered into his mind and kind of hammered into his heart, is that he really wants to go after his pitch. And then he said, I'm not going to try to pull everything. His mechanics last year was causing him to pull every pitch, even those that were away from him. He said, I'm going with every pitch this year. And he said, I'm adjusting my approach, and I just feel like it's so much better because his mechanics are so much better. And this has impacted him with runners in scoring position. And again, we saw that last night against the Rays. He helped the Angels win the game. Ward's been the best hitter with runners in scoring position this season, but he said, I'm not doing anything different when the bases are loaded or when there's runners on versus when there's no runners on. He said, honestly, I'm just trying to do the same thing. I don't notice when runners are on unless they're at third base with less than 2 outs. He says, that's when I start to focus on, hey, I want to get that guy home. And because he's been so good with runners on, Ron Washington said, I'm super comfy. That's my quote, not his, but he said, I'm super comfy with him at the cleanup spot. He said, quote, he always gives you a really good at bat. The thing that I like most about Taylor is his work ethic. You guys don't get a chance to see what happens behind the scenes, but he's an animal with his workouts. His preparation is impeccable. It really is. And I don't think many people know that. Here's the biggest question that a lot of people are concerned about with Taylor Ward and wondered about is how he would respond after getting hit in the face last year with a fastball, right? And he missed the rest of the season. Ward said the face guards really just helped him to be confident. He knows that if the ball is going to come up, he just he'll turn his cheek into that and let him hit the face guard. So he's been practicing that as well. He said, I think for me, it's just helped me to be really confident at the plate, even when like some balls are coming right at his face. He said, I want to be on time for the pitch. And I also want to get out of the way of the pitch. And so knowing that there's protection there, he said, it's helping me mentally just get back to my approach as quick as possible. So Ward leads the team in runs batted in as he entered the game last night, and then got a run batted in last night. Leads second on the team in OPS, entering last night with an 891 OPS. We discussed this in 2022 after his hot start, but I think that in 2024, Ward's got the potential of an all-star season. I don't think he'll get voted in. I don't think he'll get selected by fans, but I think that he'll get picked to be on the team, especially if he keeps up this run. And I loved just last night, I loved the intentional walk to Mike Trout and that they had to pay for it with Taylor Ward. And I think Ward is the guy that can really help carry this team along with Mike Trout offensively. And the good news is the team isn't really functioning, hitting on all cylinders with their offense, and yet they find themselves 9-9. And I think a lot of it has to do with Taylor Ward. So if the other guys around Ward and around Trout and even around Anthony Rendon can pick up the pace, I think the Angels are going to be really, really great. And one of the other things that I'd love to point out is I think Taylor Ward he's going to be somebody that I think that is going to really become beloved by Angel fans. I know some fans are starting to really love him, especially with his offensive production, but I think that he might find himself in the category of like Darren Erstad or Garrett Anderson. And because he's got 3 more years on his contract, he's not a free agent until 2027. I really think that Taylor Ward is going to be somebody that is going to be beloved by Angel fans. And I'm already starting to really buy into that as well. So good job, Taylor Ward. Thanks for helping us get a victory last night. And I'm glad that he's found himself. The 2022 version of Taylor Ward has shown up in 2024. Locked On Angels is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America, and they're the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, it's just you against the numbers. And here's how it works. Super easy. And I've downloaded it on my phone. I got it right here in front of me. You can download it, open up an account, and then when you start to play, you get to select between 2 and 6 players and decide if the player is going to produce more than or less than the projected stat. And if you're a baseball fan, there's a lot of projected stats that are easy to select. They have strikeouts and RBIs and first inning runs. So you can pick more or less of each of those categories, and then you can potentially win and get a great payout with PrizePicks. And PrizePicks offers weekly promotions. So when you have the app, you can notice those promotions pop up and get notified by those promotions, and it helps you win in some of the biggest moments in sports. So download the PrizePick app today and enter our promo code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match of up to $100. Again, the code is LOCKEDONMLB, all lowercase, all one word. You'll get a first deposit match of up to $100. Join PrizePicks today. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Ron Washington is somebody that I'm really learning to love as a leader. And getting to watch him every single day has been a whole lot of fun. You've heard all of these great stories about Wash and how he's impacted all of the players wherever he has gone. And Texas was a place where he's been, and Atlanta's a place where he's been. Oakland's a place where he's been. John's mentioned a few times on this show how he helped Marcus Semien become a really great defensive player. And so I really am starting to grow in my leadership affection of Ron Washington. But come to find out, Ron Washington has a lot of affection and a lot of sweet things to say to his players. We learned on the broadcast on Tuesday night that Wash leaves notes, written notes for his players at the start of every series. And the notes are encouragements. It speaks to the players and encourages them in certain areas. It also speaks to what that particular player needs to work on or build upon. And then it also talks about how the team needs to focus on one particular thing in the series that they're about to begin. And then I love this. Wash said that then he has Eric Young, follow up with every player to talk through the notes. And the reason why he has Eric Young do that and he doesn't do it himself is because Wash, according to Wash, he said, I'm just way too emotional and I don't want to cry in front of the players. I love that. So there's some obviously heartfelt things that he is saying to the players in these notes. Mike Trout said that he looks forward to that note at the first of every series. It's on his chair when he shows up in the morning, and he looks forward to like reading that and seeing what Wash has to say. And I love this. I love leadership. I'm a leadership nerd. John's our numbers nerd. on our show. I'm the leadership nerd on our show because of what I get to do in real life. And so I love leadership. And here's why I love this. There's a cultural buzzword right now that's being passed around in a lot of different organizations. And it's really a phrase, not just one word, but it's emotionally healthy leadership. And that's something that many organizations and businesses are promoting and prioritizing, and rightly so. And the reason for it is because some of the best leaders, or the best leaders, are self-aware leaders, meaning that they're aware of what's happening in their heart and what's happening in their mind. They're aware of who they are and what they do best. And this feels like these notes that Wash is writing, this feels like one of the goals that he's trying to achieve, to affirm what the player does well, to encourage the player, help them to focus on what they do well instead of always focusing on what they don't do well. Do the things you do well, flex the muscles that you have. And it seems like that's what Wash is trying to do. And I also love that there's this little nugget in there about what the team needs to prioritize for the entire series, because it turns the focus of each player from themselves to something so much bigger, something so much better than them, right? And instead of focusing on their thing, they're going to be for the whole thing. And you and I both know this. Come on, this is just normal human acknowledgement. Like, we're aware of this. The reality is that if you're just for your thing and not the whole thing, then your thing goes away because you have your thing because there is a whole thing, right? And so I love that Wash does this. We've talked a lot about the Angels being the boring, fundamental baseball team that they haven't been for years, really since Mike Scioscia left. And Wash is really helping to instill this, but it's not just when it comes to stuff on the field. It's not just about fundamentals on the field, but it's about fundamentals in life. And here's the reality. Being a player is really hard. It's really difficult. And you're in the spotlight. You have the media in front of you. You don't play well. Locked On Angels talks about you. You play well. They talk about you, right? And so being a player is really hard. This isn't a normal job like your job or like my job. And it can cause you to struggle mentally, emotionally. It can cause you to struggle in a lot of different ways. And so that's why I love what Wash is teaching them in just these notes. I think he's teaching them to be boring, fundamental human beings. I think he's teaching them to be boring, fundamental human beings, which means that he's teaching them to just live life regularly in a good, healthy rhythm, live life without the goal of Netflix or another organization coming and wanting to like put your life on the big screen or on the TV screen, right? Or online. That's the goal, right? You don't want to have anybody say, we got to get you on film because your life is chaos. I think that what Wash is trying to instill in these players is to be boring, fundamental human beings as they play boring, fundamental baseball, because that's what wins. And when you prioritize your emotional health, that's great. That's helpful because it allows you, for these guys, to be good husbands and boyfriends and good sons and good dads, all of those things. And it gives them permission. Wash is giving them permission to be human. He's giving them permission to be real. And then he's teaching them, like, here's what you should focus on. So clear your mind. Yesterday's game is gone. That game that we lost that was 13 innings is gone. Let's play the game today. And I'm sure that was the message that he communicated to the Angels before they played last night. Clear your mind, go out and play the game that you love, go out and play the game the way that you are wired to play it. And I really see this helping the Angels. Wash is such a great leader. And I'm learning that these little things are helping this team to be better. Listen, I know that there's a narrative out there that Wash took this job and it was kind of maybe a desperation move by the Angels and a desperation move by Wash because he's 72. The reality is that good leaders want to be a part of something that is really messy so that they can clean it up. Good leaders want to be a part of something that's kind of upside down and they can come in and turn it right side up. And so, yeah, it's probably really frustrating when he has moments like what happened in the 13-inning game. Probably really frustrating when he sees Joe Adell make mistakes or Rengifo not get in front of a ball. It's probably really frustrating. But I know that they know that he's for them. And I know that they know that he's going to help them. And you've already seen the floor get raised with this team. They're 9-9. And I know we're like, well, that's 500. That's what the Angels have been doing the last 10 years. I understand that. But this team doesn't have Shohei Ohtani. This team doesn't have a number 1, number 2, maybe even a number 3 starter. This team doesn't have a really strong bullpen, and their best piece is now out for the year. And they're 9-9. And they've played some difficult teams. Tampa's good. The Red Sox, it's still up for grabs, but I think that they're good. And they did what they were supposed to do against the Marlins. So I think what Wash is really instilling into this team is boring fundamental baseball and boring fundamental humanity, right? I know you don't want to be called boring, but I think in this case, it's actually a benefit to the Angels. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Remember, the Angels play the Rays today at 10:10 Pacific time. If you're listening to this in the morning, it's coming up. If you're listening to this in the later afternoon, we're going to recap that game on tomorrow's show. And you can catch every pitch of the Angels' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Angels. And you can follow us on Twitter, X, Locked On Angels, at Locked On Angels, and at Super Halo Bros. We're also on Instagram with at Super Halo Bros. We would love for you to reach out to us there. You can follow us there. You can talk to us there. You'll see our content there. And when John feels good, he's usually live tweeting and live posting, and it's a whole lot of fun to be a part of. So join us on Twitter, join us on Instagram, join us on social media, and join us tomorrow because we're going to recap this early game against the Rays, and we're going to talk about Griffin Canning's start. I really want to dive into what he did well and what he didn't do well. And I'm hopeful that he can do some things really well because we need him to come through. We're also going to preview the Reds series that's coming up. The Reds got swept, by the way, by the Mariners. So they're coming in, or we're actually going to Cincinnati, and they're limping, and we're hopeful that we can get a win and get over 500 as we get to Cincinnati. So we're going to talk about Canning's start. We're going to preview the Cincinnati Reds series against the Rays. Going to be a great conversation. I hope you'll join us for Locked On Angels tomorrow. Until then, my name is Mike. Hopeful that John can join us tomorrow. We're hoping that you get better, buddy. And we'll see you tomorrow on Locked On Angels. I'm going to take a drink, man. That was a lot of talking.